Hi, welcome to BevCam. Welcome to this special program. My name is Walt Kosmowski. The City of Beverly has asked us to air this program to provide the latest information on the Brimbal Avenue interchange project before the public vote on February 8th. And I'm here with Beverly's Mayor, Mike Cahill. Mike, welcome.
Thanks, Walt.
And with that, I will give you the floor.
Sure. So what I'll do is I'll just share the statement that I made public yesterday, and then we can talk about it a bit.
Sure.
So on Saturday, February 8th, Beverly voters will vote on whether to uphold or overturn the City Council's 2013 decision to rezone the state-owned land at Exit 19 North, and that's the land between Sawyer Road and Brimbal Avenue. This rezoning would make possible a land swap between the state and the adjacent landowner, the CEA Group, facilitating the construction of a new access road on the CEA Group's land. I greatly respect the citizens who engaged in the democratic process of organizing the petition drive placing this question on the ballot. You have shown that you care deeply about both our neighborhoods and our city's future decisions regarding appropriate development throughout the Brimbal Avenue, Dunham Road, and Route 128 corridor. All opinions on this issue are valid, and I ask voters to be respectful of each other and of our democratic process in the coming days. We are in the midst of a serious-minded, spirited debate. As Beverly's mayor, I understand how increasingly confusing this issue has become. So I want to tell you what I know about this project. Excuse me. And based upon what I know, I believe that a yes vote is the right one for our city. Whatever the outcome of this election, I look forward to working with all interested people to ensure that this multi-phase project is done right, in a way that will improve traffic safety, promote appropriate and needed economic development, and will ensure that our neighborhoods continue to thrive. Since taking office on January 6th, I have spent more time working on this issue than any other, working with state and city officials, neighbors, and the developer. In doing so, I have identified two main issues that need some clarification. First, where will the road improvements be made? The week before I took office, I was made aware that the state's Department of Transportation and the Department of Environmental Protection had expressed concern with building the new access road on the land currently owned by the CEA Group. Specifically, state officials questioned the structural integrity of building the road on the former landfill, and they now strongly believe that significant amounts of fill would have to be removed from the site in order to build the road, likely at a high cost. As a result, the DOT directed the city's engineer, and that's Jacobs Engineering, to present an alternate design that would build the road within the footprint of the existing access road, connecting Sawyer Road and Brimbal Ave. Jacobs has done so. Mass DOT engineers have reviewed this very preliminary design and believe it to be viable. However, this is a very early review, and we cannot yet be certain of its viability. At the same time, the CEA Group has offered to fund the cost of ensuring the structural integrity of the new access road, if a solution can be identified that both the state will accept and the CEA Group will legally commit to fund. Mass DOT and my administration have made clear that neither the state nor the city would bear these costs, and it's only if the CEA Group commits to funding that this design of road would be buildable. In other words, we now have two possible designs in play for the new access road. One is to build within the existing road footprint, and the second is to build on the CEA Group property. And neither one is yet assured of being buildable. The second issue is, will the city receive the $5 million state MassWorks grant to build the road? Much has been said and written about the $5 million MassWorks grant that was awarded to the city by the State Department of Housing and Economic Development. Please know this. This grant was awarded to the city because state officials believe that this infrastructure project will facilitate and lead to significant new economic growth throughout the corridor. And this corridor includes Sawyer Road, Tozer Road, the Beverly Hospital campus, Dunham Road, Brimbal Avenue, and Otis Road. This grant does not depend on any one specific parcel of land being developed a certain way, i.e. the grant award does not depend on the CEA Group developing on one parcel versus another, nor whether its development would include a Whole Foods market or not. However, our receipt of the $5 million grant funds does depend on two things. First, we propose a road to the state. If Mass DOT will not approve our road design, the Department of Housing and Economic Development will not give us the money. And second, the road taken together with Phase 2 will lead to significant new economic growth throughout the corridor. Since we have two road designs and both need to be further explored to determine their viability or buildability, in order to keep both options alive and available to the city, I cannot agree with the assertion that a no vote is best for our city. Beverly needs the traffic safety improvements and the economic development that this project can bring. And we need to keep our options open regarding which possible road design to present to the state. As I said, we need to present a road to the state that is buildable. I believe that the yes vote is in the best interest of Beverly. I will vote yes on February 8th, and I urge the citizens of Beverly to join me. With either road design, there will be more opportunity for public input, and I encourage you to stay informed and stay engaged. Further, both my administration and my colleagues on the City Council are committed to transparency and to working with all interested parties to make this project work for us all. The Brimbal Avenue project presents our city with a great opportunity, as well as real responsibility to our city's future. We need to attract the economic growth that will bring high-quality jobs to Beverly and revenues to fund our schools, our public safety, and all the services that our citizens expect and need from the city. We also need to protect the character of our neighborhoods. I am determined that we will succeed on all counts, and that our city, as well as our residents, will benefit for years to come.
Well, Mike, thank you very much. I'd like to kind of delve into some of these topics with you so that our viewers are very clear on just what the facts are before they go and vote on February 8th. Now, this new information, let's be clear, is the DOT/DEP decision that they don't want to build on the remediated part, the part that they would take in the swap, is that an irrevocable decision at this point?
No, and it's not a decision necessarily. What happened is the DOT and their counterparts at the DEP, Department of Environmental Protection. To my understanding, this is what I was told the week before I was sworn into office. Christmas week, they met with city officials and they said, we've got a real concern that because of the landfill being underneath the ground, they have a concern that a road that we would build with grant money, but that they would own. It'll be state property, state land, state road. They had concern for the structural integrity, that if it's not built right, that the road could eventually settle, sink, cave in.
Sure.
And so they directed our engineer. They said, look, we fear that it's going to be pretty expensive to build this road, so they asked our engineer to come back with some estimates on what it would cost to do different levels of work. And I don't want to use the term remediation because this is a structural integrity issue, not an environmental issue. You know, will the land that would be under the road hold it up, or will it settle? So Jacobs Engineering put 4 different options in front of DOT for different ways to treat the property, ranging in price from $800,000 to $5 million. DOT said that the $5 million option of removing and replacing all the fill is the one that they would prefer. And they looked and said, well, we don't have $5 million to put to it, and the city doesn't. So now we better look at other options. They directed our engineer to provide an alternative design within the footprint of the existing road. The state already owns that property. That's right, where the current ramp road is, from where you get off the highway at Sawyer Road up to Brimbal Ave and by the Victoria Rocky Post. So they directed us to do that. So now what's on the table are 2 different designs, one building in place, one building on the CEA property. The CEA group, who clearly prefer the idea of the land swap and owning a slightly larger parcel of land, they said, we don't want this option that people have put a lot of time and energy and money into to fall off the table. So CEA said to the department and to the city, we'll pay for the cost of preparing the road to be structurally sound to build on. But we don't agree that it should cost that much.
Right.
So CEA and the Department of Transportation are supposed to be sitting down in the near future. CEA is developing a proposal to the state to show, this is what it should take, this is what it should cost, this is what work should need to happen in order for the land to be structurally sound to build on. They've hired an engineering firm that has done a significant amount of redevelopment on landfills. And so that process of CEA Group and the State Department of Transportation trying to come to a meeting of the minds is ongoing. I don't think that will be concluded for a few weeks. It's just where that process is.
Right, yeah.
So for us, we have, as I said, two designs on the table. The design that some time and energy and money has been expended on to place the road over CEA's property that is roughly at a 25% design phase. And that's a point at which typically a property is brought forward for a public hearing. So if that remains alive, we'll need to have a public hearing on that design at some point. The redesign in place on the state road is at roughly what would be characterized a 5% design.
The new design.
It's a very preliminary design.
Yeah.
And it's encouraging in that it looks like it could be viable. But what we need is to bring a road to the state that the State Department of Transportation will approve. It's, if we bring a buildable road to them, they'll approve it, and then we'll get the grant to build it.
Let's do this, I think, for our viewers, so that to put this into context. Let's have the folks in our control room put up Figure 1.
Sure.
And Figure 1, I think you have a copy as well, Mike. Figure 1 shows the zoning, the current zoning and proposed land swap change. And the current IR overlay zone is the one that is cross-hatched in diagonal lines, and you can see there the existing connector between Sawyer and Brimbal. And the double cross-hatched is the proposed, that's the proposed swap land. So in other words, the state would take that land on which the existing connector is on and give that to CEA, and the state would take the land that is closer to the building, sort of towards the bottom and middle, where a new connector would be built. That's the proposal. And let's take a look then at Figure 2, and it's in the same proportion and same relative there. So we can see then that the yellow connector road there with the two rotaries at either end, that is the new connector which would be built by the state on CEA land that they would swap for the other portion. And to make sure that this is clear, what CEA now has said, I'm sorry, what the DOT and DEP have said is that they don't feel that it's in a condition that could support a road, a connector road, and they're saying to the developer, to the city, that it's got to be put into a condition that we accept that a connector road could be built. And the city is very clear that neither city money nor state money is going to that, I don't want to say remediation, but to that process of conditioning that. And according to the paper and according to what you've just said, Jacobs Engineering has put a figure of between $800,000 and $5 million on conditioning that. And I think CEA has initially said that they thought it would cost a figure of roughly $500,000. So they seem to be a little distance away. And now what you're saying, what we're hearing is that the CEA has to look at Jacobs' plan or come up with a plan for the DOT, so the DOT is satisfied that that connector road could be built. Otherwise, they're proposing a different solution where the new connector would be built on the footprint of the old connector. I hope I said that all correctly. Yeah. So is that a clear assessment of where we are now?
That works.
Yeah.
Let me try to state, I think, the real crux of the issue for people when they go vote on February 8th. We're trying to build a new road, and the purpose of the new road will be to improve traffic safety flow, and I want to talk about that a little bit, and also to open up that those properties for more economic investment and development. And it's all those properties from Tozer Road near the high school and Sawyer Road and Brimbal and on out Dunham and Otis. So we're trying to accomplish two things: improving traffic safety and facilitating economic investment and development. We need to bring a buildable road to the state. We don't know yet if the redesign in place is buildable. We thought that the road on CEA's property was buildable. Now we're not sure.
Right.
But it still may be. And again, if the CEA group and the state can agree on a level of work that needs to be done to create that structural integrity on the property, and it's a cost that CEA is willing to pay, they'll commit to paying it, and that option becomes buildable, becomes viable, right? If people vote no, and the no vote prevails, then that option is taken off the table. So we currently have two designs we can look at and try to figure out which one is buildable, and if they're both buildable, which one is in the best interest of the city. If the no vote prevails and the option of building the road on the CEA group's property is taken away from us, it's really tying the city's hands and saying to us, now we only have one option, and if that proves to not be buildable, then we won't get the $5 million. We can't build a new road, we can't improve traffic safety, and we can't facilitate the economic growth that we all know the city needs. You know, I just toured all six elementary schools, the 5 that are functioning as elementary schools, and the one that's used for collaborative programming with our regional collaborative. I just toured them all today to get a sense of how space is being used, of how we're challenged for space and how it's being used. And the reality is we need a new middle school, and we have some real space crunch concerns at our elementary level. We have pre-kindergarten classes in rented space at the consortium building up on Sawyer Road. We have pre-kindergarten classes at the Memorial Building. We have all of our school administrative offices at the Memorial Building. You know, we have every elementary school is full of classes and may be overfull by next year. Some of them are using that were supposed to be dedicated science rooms for regular classrooms. So, and that's just one example. We have many needs in this community, some infrastructure, some operating budget. We need to be able to promote the economic growth that this project can help us promote. Right.
Now, let me just back up and let's look at Figure 3, because this, in the interest of completeness, Figure 3 shows what the as you call it, it's a 5% plan at this point. Mm-hmm. And this is an option 2, that let's say that that building on the CEA-owned land is not doable, then this would be built. This is where the connector would be. This is on the existing footprint of the old connector, and it still incorporates a roundabout at each end. Correct?
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Now. And I'd like you to be clear, Mike, because there are some people that have been saying that a no vote would mean we don't get the $5 million from the state. Could you again repeat that what that $5 million is contingent on? It's not contingent upon where, but give us what the
$5 million is not dependent on any one parcel of land being developed in a certain way. It's dependent upon our ability to build a road that will help to facilitate economic growth throughout the whole corridor. And again, that corridor is from just uphill from Beverly High School, right? Tozer Road, which goes off of Sawyer Road. So Tozer, Sawyer, the Beverly Hospital campus. And as far as the hospital goes, you know, we don't want the hospital to disinvest in their Beverly campus. We want to make sure that we have healthcare protection, healthcare services at every level for our population going forward for decades. So we want them to know that access to their campus is going to be what they need it to be, so that they can care for our population for years. Mm-hmm. So that's important. I guess maybe if we could put that map back up for just a sec.
And which one do you want?
The one that was just up. Yeah.
Okay.
So, you had asked me what's the grant dependent on. Mm-hmm. It's dependent on us putting a road project forward that the DOT can and will approve.
Right.
So since we don't know whether this design is buildable yet, we don't want to lose the option on the other.
Right,
We want to keep
exactly.
both options alive, which is why the yes vote. So if we bring a buildable road forward and that road helps us to promote and facilitate significant new economic growth throughout the corridor, those are the requirements. Now, that significant new economic growth, that is really a value judgment that I believe the state has made in awarding the grant. And so, at this point, we need to bring the buildable road forward.
Right.
Looking at that design, as I said, it's only at roughly 5% design. At the top of the screen is going left to right is 128 North, and you see the first roundabout as you get off. There would be, coming off the highway, the single lane off-ramp would, as you turn the corner, split into 2 lanes. One lane staying to the right would go down Sawyer Road towards the high school. The second lane to the left would go into the roundabout.
Right.
And that would take you up to the second roundabout up at the Victoria Rocky post. And so the concerns are to make sure there's not queuing backwards from that first roundabout out onto the highway.
Right.
Up top, to make sure that there's sufficient merging space between the roundabout and if you were to come off that roundabout at Victoria Rocky and head towards North Beverly, to make sure that traffic can merge successfully by the overpass. And we also have to look at traffic flow in and out of the roundabout from all the directions. So those are some of the things that will need to be determined.
Sure.
As I said, Jacobs Engineering and the Mass DOT engineers at a preliminary review level have said it looks like it can work, so let's continue to take, to look more closely.
And your point certainly is that let's keep both options open, since we don't know which one is more viable. Mm-hmm. Now let me ask you, and I wasn't clear on this point, and maybe you can elucidate it. Mm-hmm. The folks that are giving us the money, I thought it was the DOT, this $5 million, but it's an organization or department called Mass Works. Can you explain what Mass Works is and how they give these grants out, or these?
Mass Works is actually a grant program. Mm-hmm. The Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development is the state agency or the state secretariat that is that oversees the Mass Works grant program. What happened was, I know that former Mayor Scanlon worked for some time to try to find transportation funding for this project, and the state had said repeatedly, we see the worthiness of the project and the need for the project, but it's not near the top of the list for transportation funding. There's never enough money for transportation funding. So former Mayor Scanlon was, I think, he was encouraged to, or he figured out to go after some economic development funding instead of transportation funding. Mm-hmm. So the Mass Works grant, $5 million, is an economic and housing development. Now, I think in our case, the focus has been more on economic development. Although I think when you look at the whole of the project in Phase 1 and Phase 2, there's some residential opportunity. But it's really focused on economic development. We have roughly, I think, 31 parcels of land throughout that corridor that are zoned commercial and industrial. And while many of them are in use, we think that they could be put to better use, that they could be kind of increased in terms of the investments on them and the use. And there are some parcels that are zoned for commercial industrial that are undeveloped. So the focus is on those pieces of land and making the access to them safer, more efficient, and that's why this first phase of this access road is so critical.
Makes sense. Now, I will remind you that when we had these public hearings on the Brimbal Avenue project, there was a lot of concern expressed by folks in town about transparency and about being part of the process. And I know you're a big advocate of that. Can you tell us a little bit more about how going forward your plan to involve people and make sure that people who want to participate do get to participate?
Sure. And as you know, Walt, I inherited this. I walked in on this, but I believe in the need for both the traffic safety improvements and the economic opportunities. I have met several times, both during my campaign and since I've taken office, I've met with the 2 neighborhood groups that have been most involved, the North Beverly Neighborhood Association and the Montserrat Neighborhood Group. And I'll continue to meet with them, both their leaders and any members. The reality is, after this February 8th election, we'll still have a project that we need to do. And we'll still be working to move that forward in the best way possible. We'll need anybody and everybody who's interested to be at the table, because for the next several years, maybe the next decade, we'll be working to make phase 1 a reality and then to make phase 2 a reality. And this is a significant opportunity for our community and a responsibility at the same time. You know, I describe Beverly as a maturing community in terms of development, not a mature yet community, but this is, you know, one of those significant pieces that we need to get right. We need to find the best opportunities for economic growth through this corridor, and we need to make them real so that we can benefit from both the jobs and the tax revenues that'll help drive our operating budget so people can get the services they need. And we also need to make sure that as we do this, we protect the character of our neighborhoods. It's you know, this is a large swath of land kind of along the Route 128 corridor that is surrounded by residential neighborhoods. So we need to get it right. There's, from my point of view, the only way to get it right is to have neighbors at the table every step of the way. And there'll be plenty of opportunity. And you know, I don't want it any other way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, Mike, can you tell us a little bit more about your vision for phase 2? And I realize it's difficult to get into a lot of specifics at this early stage, but if you can talk about the concept of new growth and the need for new growth to fund the kind of debt and the kind of costs and expenses that the city faces, because I think a lot of people are having trouble connecting those two.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess a couple of thoughts. First, to talk about balance for just a minute, we have some significant acreage of conservation land around Norwood Pond, behind the music theater, adjacent to the North Beverly School. And I just want to say that as we look to develop land that's zoned for development, commercial industrially zoned land, I want to make sure that we take the conservation land we have and put it under stronger protections. So I'm looking into trying to put you know, more permanent conservation restrictions on that area of land that would be, at the end of all this, would be adjacent to this new commercial industrial development. In terms of why we need the money, you know, I was working today with my finance director on our capital financing plan, which the mayor needs to submit to the city council annually, and we try to take a 10-year look out. You know, we need to build a middle school. We need to build new public safety facilities, police and fire. We need to upgrade our public service facilities. The city garage is 100+ years old. They don't have what they need to do the job we ask them to do. We have miles and miles of both roadway that needs repairing and water infrastructure under the roads, sewer infrastructure under the roads. You know, we've got a lot of what you don't ever see, you know,
sure,
that people count on to bring safe drinking water to them and to handle their other needs. And as I said, the roads, we all know that our roads have a ways to go to be, you know, to be the roads we can be happy with. So those are just some of the things. We've got, you know, many more things that you could look at on our operating budget side. And we need to make sure that our schools continue to do great work and get better each year. We need to make sure that we're sufficiently staffed and funded in our public safety, and that the other types of services, you know, our library services, our senior services, our veteran services, and our recreation and park services, we all care about them. You know, we care about all of them, and we need those to be top notch. So these are the kind of things that demand that we are not only open to new economic growth, but we seek it out where it's appropriate. And we seek it out in both a thoughtful way, but also an aggressive way. Right. And I think that, again, done right, this Brimbal Avenue project in its entirety is a big part of how we're going to do those things in the coming years.
Right. Well, very, very well said, Mike. Now, I think we're kind of running to the end of our time. Mm-hmm. Can you, would you like to summarize sort of what your position is, and specifically your, what you like to say to the voters and the citizens mm-hmm. regarding the vote coming up on February 8th?
Sure. Two things. First, I want to just touch on the traffic safety issue because I said I would and I didn't, and then I'll give that wrap up. On the traffic safety, we have no fewer than 21 left turning movements along Brimbal Avenue and down to Sawyer Road, from Dunham Road down to Herrick Street Extension, so kind of across that corridor. By that I mean places where people have to take a left turn out across a lane of traffic.
Right.
It might be from the off-ramp coming from Centerville to get onto Brimbal Ave. It might be coming out of a driveway at one of the gas stations, or coming out of Herrick Street Extension, or going into Herrick Street Extension, and or the left turns at the stop sign on the ramp road by Victoria
Right.
Rocky and down by the highway. Some of those will be directly improved and changed with the roundabouts, and others will be improved because the roundabouts will create a more predictable flow of traffic. Instead of traffic stopping and waiting for a break at a stop sign, people coming up to that roundabout will have the same ability to move as the people coming into the roundabout from Brimbal. So you'll have that type of predictable movement. That will also provide some breaks in the movement of traffic along Brimbal, so those left turns become safer. So there's a lot to be gained, and I know people don't really know roundabouts. I think there's a lot still to learn about them. I've driven a lot of them, and I know there are more and more of them in Massachusetts. They're a much better design than a stop sign or a traffic light, and I think that's something that I want to make sure that we spend some time on and people come to understand. As far as why the yes vote, I've tried to say it clearly. I'll just say it one more time. You know, we know we need these traffic safety improvements. We know we need the economic growth opportunities. In order to get the grant, in order to move forward and build this road, we need to bring a buildable road to the state. We have two designs on the table. We don't yet know if either of them are going to prove to be buildable. By that I mean that the Mass Department of Transportation will approve them. Because of that, we need to keep both alive. A no vote will really take one option off the table, tie the hands of the city, and put all of our eggs in that one basket. And I just don't think it's wise for us right now. You know, I'm committed to the kind of transparency and the kind of community involvement that will give neighbors an opportunity to help impact how the project develops going forward, hopefully all in a positive way. At this point, I ask people to trust my judgment on this, and at the same time, call me with any questions. You know, challenge my assumptions, and let's talk about it. The election's in about 10 days. I'm available to talk with anybody at any time between now and then. I'm at City Hall. I'm easy to find. I'll come out to the neighborhoods and whatnot. But it's critically important at this point that the options are kept alive for the city and the yes vote prevail. Right.
Well, Mike, thank you very much. You have been watching a special program on BevCam with the latest information on the Brimbal Avenue overpass project. Our guest has been the mayor of Beverly, Mike Cahill. And this is Walt Kosmowski for BevCam, urging you to go out and vote on February 8th. Thank you very much.